Welcome to Startup Health TV. This is a special COVID-19 health innovation update. I'm Logan Plaster, editor of Startup Health magazine, and I'm joined today by Jackie Iversen, founder and head of clinical development. Is that correct? At Sen-Jam Pharmaceuticals.
Hi, Logan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jackie, so glad you could take some time from your busy schedule. Are you safe and healthy? Where are you calling in from right now?
I'm calling in from Huntington, New York, which turns out to be the hotspot for COVID-19, along with New York City area.
When you say the hotspot in Long Island, what does that mean?
Well, the entire Long Island initially got hit really bad with COVID-19 cases, and I'm part of my local hospital, which I work as a hospital pharmacist part-time. Is one community hospital of a consortium that's very large, and our hospital got completely turned into a COVID-19 hospital with over 250 beds.
So paint us a picture. What are you seeing as a pharmacist?
Well, it's very difficult. I don't have direct patient care. However, we do continually are bringing up medications to the patient's floors, particularly our wonderful pharmacy technicians. And it's very difficult to know that it can be transmitted so easily. And fortunately, we have a lot of protective equipment, and we're just taking every precaution we can to ensure that nobody in our department turns COVID positive, because we would hate to not be able to perform our task.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been in research for years. You lead clinical development for this startup, this pharmaceutical startup, SenJam. Tell me briefly what you've built, what your primary product is at SenJam, and then we'll talk about how you're refocusing and framing this around COVID-19.
Sure. So at Sen-Jam Pharmaceutical, we are redeveloping small molecules to be used for different uses. In other words, drugs get approved and are used consistently or for a long period of time for patients, and but they have more than one use, which is kind of unknown. And if you can take a very safe drug and turn it into something that you didn't know it possessed, then, or an activity it didn't possess, then you have a great product to introduce again to a lot of patients. For example, we work with non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and also antihistamines. And they've been used for years, but they have some really wonderful characteristics, particularly for treating pain and inflammation.
Yeah. So for non-clinical listeners, we're talking about combining over-the-counter, repurposing over-the-counter treatments that we'd be very familiar with, right? Like a Motrin or a...
Yes. So these very useful products can be repurposed to be used for a lot of unique indications that people are not familiar with. And they can be used in addition to pain management to potentiate pain relief.
Got it.
Also, what's very important about them is by combining them, we're combining two products that make the most potent and safest anti-inflammatory that you can buy.
Okay.
Without a prescription. So this is very important as people go through their lives and they're realizing that a lot of disease is caused by inflammation, or a lot of their own discomfort comes from an inflammatory source. Mm-hmm. And so we are finding that you could use our product for some very great and large unmet needs.
Got it.
For example, our first lead product is for reducing the symptoms associated with alcohol hangover. And a lot of people thought that that was due to dehydration, but we at SenJam believe that's due to an inflammatory response.
Hmm.
So by taking our product, you could reduce those symptoms of that are associated the next morning with hangover. Why this is important is because hangover causes a lot of decreased productivity in our society. So by feeling great the next day, you are going to be better at what you do, and you're going to enjoy your next day. That is a small example of what our product can do. We found that by changing the recipe a little bit more, we were able to stabilize the neuroimmune system by using a prescription product, but with a similar mechanism of action. And we were able to see a reduction in opioid withdrawal symptoms as it pertains to our animal studies that we've done. This is big because there's not really anything on the market that can reduce opioid withdrawal symptoms, which is the #1 reason why people continue their dependence on opioids. And as we all know, how devastating the opioid epidemic is.
Got it. Okay. So that was the core product of SenJam. You're combining these molecules that are tested in the market, finding these new uses, applying it towards withdrawal, applying it towards hangover. Now, COVID-19 hits, and you've got your background in clinical research, drug research. How do you think about this moment in time over the last few months? So what happened?
Right. Thank you, Logan. So what happened was we had a product that we would have called our third lead product, but we hadn't moved too fast on it yet. It is for the common cold. In other words, as soon as you feel that you have symptoms of the common cold, or it could even be the seasonal flu, would be a great product to take early on, because you're going to decrease the inflammation and really just all the inflammation that occurs with your body's reaction to the common cold. So we were noticing when our volunteers were taking it that they would have less congestion, less coughing, and less sneezing, and less headache. And it would help them not to have to take a day off of work, and also all those symptoms would be reduced. So people found that they were more productive,
Mhm.
and they also found perhaps that they wouldn't sneeze as much or cough as much, so they wouldn't spread their common cold as much. Now, when COVID-19 came, we said, well, that's very interesting. Maybe you could decrease the transmission. But through the research of finding out more about COVID-19, as I'm sure everybody is learning about this very crazy virus, is that our products actually have an antiviral component to it. We feel that if you took our product at the first signs of COVID-19, that you would decrease the virus, and you would also decrease the inflammation. And this virus has a very big inflammatory component to it that's causing a lot of the lung problems that lead to hospitalization. Now, I'm not saying I have the answer to COVID-19, but I do think that our product might have a place in joining the standard of care with
Mm.
COVID-19. I think it could provide people with a lot of relief, and also it could decrease the mortality or the morbidity that we're seeing with this. We've spoken to researchers around the world who have clinical trials already with COVID-19. And there's a few clinical trials that are looking into this concept of adding something with a little bit extra antiviral component to it, while also reducing the inflammation that is seen prior to the lungs are really getting damaged.
Got it.
So we feel very excited that we might be able to have something that could just help a little bit, or even more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
we are working like around the clock to try and develop this product as soon as we can.
what does that rapid development and deployment process look like? I mean, you have a history in research. This must be a whole different animal. Global collaboration, condensed timelines. What is the process like?
Yeah, so right now what is on our plate this week is that we are doing an in vitro study in Vero cells, which is the model to test out any drug product for COVID-19. We're going to be doing this test this week to find out if our single drugs or our combination product have antiviral activity against the exact COVID-19 virus, which is called SARS-CoV-2. We're first going to do that as a proof of concept, and then we are going to work with either institutions or researchers around the world to try and get our drug product into a clinical trial to test it in humans. This is a very rapid development, and because our drugs are known to be safe in humans with over 20 years of experience, we can quickly get into humans where other drug products that are investigational and have never been in a large amount of humans would take much longer, months, maybe a year to finally get in a human. So the only way we can come up with a treatment for COVID-19 this year, in my opinion, is only if you repurpose drugs that you already know are out there and just keep trying them and see what will work in those in vitro tests that I mentioned.
How much activity is happening in that market right now? I've heard multiple people talking about repurposing from, companies working with giant Chinese, institutes to try to find the molecules that they need to repurpose. Is this something that's happening everywhere concurrently, and just kind of the best is going to bubble to the top, or what?
Logan, this is a great question because this was what SenJam is all about. Realizing that repurposing drugs is a wonderful way to get safe drugs into large groups of people for different indications. And COVID-19 has spotlighted this fact that instead of making a molecule, a new molecule that might take lots of money and lots of time, and which we don't have right now, and taking something that's already on your shelf and using it for this purpose has become like the spotlight of repurposing drugs. And the whole world is now focused on that. This is the best way to provide pharmaceutical products at low cost to the masses.
Yeah.
And this has always been the dream of Sen-Jam Pharmaceutical, is to not create a very expensive, unique drug that only targets, one indication or one use, but to find drugs that can be used safely for so many people and to bring relief to so many people. So we feel that the road that we've been on for 5 years now has the spotlight on it. And we're excited about that, while we, of course, are just working endlessly to try and bring relief as soon as we can.
Yeah. You kind of answered what was going to be my next question, which is, what it's like to be a startup in this market, because we don't actually hear about a lot of pharmaceutical startups. And we think of really gigantic multinational organizations doing this kind of work. And, what is it like to bring that sort of innovative entrepreneurial mindset to something that's so entrenched in big industry? And you sort of got at that, but I wonder if you have any final thoughts on that.
Yeah, we have had a wonderful story this past week that's evolving. First of all, for me as a startup, and for my entrepreneurial husband and partner, and our third partner who's in charge of regulatory affairs with the FDA, we have been speaking to top line researchers from around the world at all 24 hours a day. Spain, France, Australia, who everyone is collaborating like never before. And as soon as even though I'm a startup and saying I have this idea and just hear me out, everyone is getting so excited because they see that science can move so quickly and so collaboratively, and it's very exciting. Except still, Logan, as you point out, we're a startup. Who's gonna pay attention to us, or who's gonna help us out, right? So here we are trying to do our in vitro study in Australia, and there's a need to get our drugs as quickly as we can to this site in Australia. And through social networking, my husband now has somebody in charge of Merck who is trying everything they can to help us expedite our
Wow.
drug into this in vitro study.
Wow.
So it's just like a wonderful
Mm.
experience to see so much collaboration, and everybody's just trying to do everything they can at any level to help out the next person to advance their cause.
That's awesome. Love to hear that direct story straight from the front lines. So, Jackie, appreciate all the work that you're doing. If someone wants to collaborate with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. So our website is senjam.com, sen-jam.com. And the best way to get a hold of us is through email at jiversen, that's spelled Jiversen, at senjam with a hyphen.com.
Awesome. And we catalog all of that at startuphealth.com as well, where we have a company profile and some other ways of getting information about SenJam. So, Jackie, thank you for the work that you and Jim and the whole team are doing there. And we will keep in touch as the weeks go on.
Thank you, Logan.
All right. Have a good one.